Well, hello there. Hi.
Hey, Jonathan, one of my favorite people.
How are you, Nadine?
I am good on this kind of chilly autumn day. How are you, Jonathan?
I'm good. Just watching the fog. Uh,
Oh yeah, that was a
I
little
mean,
heavy, wasn't it?
yeah, since this morning, you can almost not see the pagoda, and I'm like, when are you gonna go away? Why? Makes me think about the horror movies, and I don't watch them for a reason.
Yeah,
So,
I'll tell you a story about the pagoda and fog one day, but not
oh,
here, not now.
Oh my God. Well, welcome everyone to another Askable Adults episode, the show where we talk all about sex ed every single week in so many different ways and with so many different people. It can make your head spin. But before actually starting, as always, we want to start with our usual acknowledgments and recognitions, and that is that Black Lives Matter today and always.
Yes.
Aside from that, who are these people that are
Who
talking
are
to
these
you
people?
every single week when you come here?
Yeah.
Hopefully. So, my name is Jonathan Rodriguez. I use he, him, and el pronouns, and I'm the Youth and Health Resource Center Coordinator for Vaccines Matters. And the Health Resource Center Coordinator is open. Well, not today, clearly, but it's open and available for all Reading High students in the room 138. That 138, that's the health room. And it's door number 5. You just ask for Jonathan, and they will point you to my office. And this is the information. And with me,
My name is Nadine, and my pronouns are they and their, and I am the community liaison with Berks Teens Matter, appreciating every opportunity I have to get out in the community and interact and meet with people.
especially when there's no fog and cold.
That's especially when there's no fog and cold. This is true. Although I
and
do have
may-
my hoodie, I always have my hoodie.
and maybe the fog will have your head spinning or maybe not, but sometimes it makes our head spin because besides being here talking to each other and all of our viewers, we're also talking to people in various places in the community and keeping up with the many important conversations happening around.
Yes.
This past weekend, there was several very important conversations happening at City Park, so
Yes.
it's important to keep those conversations happening.
Yes, it is. I managed to miss those due to prior commitments, but I'm really glad that Jonathan was there to represent.
And Nadine, we're in October. What does that
We're in
mean?
October. Let's talk month.
Um,
So let's talk, right? We should talk about, how about we talk about something sex ed for a
um,
change?
I mean, we pretty much always do talk about something sex ed related, Nadine. So, in fact, literally, we just don't, you know, that was my opening. Were you here when that happened?
Well, I was here, and at the same time, I was kind of sort of listening, but then I was also thinking about what we're talking about here tonight because it is Let's Talk Month, and it's still just in the middle of Hispanic Heritage Month, and I couldn't quite decide if we should be talking sexual health or if we should be talking Hispanic heritage or a little bit of both of those things. So
Okay. So not only, and I just remember, not only is Hispanic Heritage Month and Let's Talk Month, it's also LGBTQ plus History Month. So there's a bunch of stuff happening at the same time. So we should talk about this or that.
this or that.
Yeah, like sex ed, this or that. You remember?
Oh, the sex ed this or that. You mean like, was your experience more like this or like that? I'm up for
Something.
that. Yeah, 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 yeah. Can I go first?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, good. We do have to tell folks that we were being inspired and taking some examples from sex positive families talks to have with kids. It's that great little book that we talked about many episodes back. And we used some of their tips to create this little activity. Um, was it more like this or that? Because the things that they suggest in sex positive families, it just makes me smile. So, are you ready, Jonathan?
Yes, we are ready. Boom.
Okay.
This or that.
This or that. So, Jonathan,
Yes.
was the message that you got from your parents or family more like this? That your body's going through a lot of big changes while you're in puberty, and it has to go through those changes to get you through puberty. Would you like to talk about anything that you're noticing? So was your messages like this, or were your messages like more like that, which is, I know your hormones are raging, just don't do anything stupid.
uh, I think it was more in the lines of that. Uh, not even, not even parents or family, because there was no like really not any type of conversations regarding that.
So it
Um,
wasn't this or that
it wasn't. It
in the
wasn't either.
family. But
But I think it would have been more the second one. Not only for the body changes, um, but you know how teens start to behave in certain ways during those during the adolescence. So it was more about that. I may have not been that easy, and I can recognize
that's
that.
hard for me to believe, but I will accept it as your truth.
Hey, I'm aware. I'm aware. But yeah, I definitely I I've met many people throughout my life that have gone, uh, had experienced that and not this.
Yes,
So hopefully
me
we can have,
too.
yeah, we can have more people that um prefer this and not that.
Yes.
So can it be my turn?
Sure. Go ahead. What are you going to throw at me?
So, the first time you touch a condom or dental dam, shouldn't be the first time you're having sex. Let's run to the store and pick up some barrier methods so I can show you the steps for using them correctly. Or was the message that if you're going to do it, make sure to wrap it up? Was it this
Oh,
or that, Nadine?
I love this statement. This is one of my favorite ones in the book. Um, and partly it's one of my favorites because it just makes my head explode. I can hardly imagine having received that message. And I would have to say, similar to kind of what you were saying, maybe among my peers, there might have been sort of a that message. In my house,
Mm,
it was more of a silence around this topic. And so that sort of left the message that I was picking up out in the community to be the voice, and it was more kind of like that.
mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And well, and of course, in this particular, very specific one. I mean, they do mention dental dam, um, but I think the it's very usual to say, "Oh, wrap it up, put a condom, da 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 da." So this is also not talking about different types of sexual experiences from with different people, because something that I always say, maybe a person is having a sexual encounter that may have a lower chances of an STI or etc. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be also talking about how to protect ourselves, not only our, because here of course it's something more physical, but also this could lead to how to protect our heart. So
Yes, it could.
so if you're gonna have
Yeah.
sex, wrap it up. It's like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, but how about we also talk about other stuff that are involved, the emotions, the
Yeah.
nervousness, all
Like
that,
our whole being
our
and our
whole
whole
being.
experience.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
these types of comments are very specific to very specific people, I
Hmm.
believe. Um, and also
Yes.
like it creates a wall, a barrier where, you know, sex is a thing that y'all do, and it's incredible because now, oh my god, now I'm thinking about it. It's almost like there's nothing involved except the physical part.
That is the problem that I think we have in our culture. Whenever we talk about sex or sexuality or sexual
Mm,
health, the general thing is that people only think about the physical part of it.
yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing that I like about the this suggestion that came from Melissa in her book about having positive conversations is that it acknowledges, unlike the that we have listed here, the this acknowledges that there's some learning involved, and there's some preparation, and there's some practice, and you can't, it's not like something that you just know how to do, both emotionally and physically, in terms of your skills and all those pieces of it, but it's a process, and it's a learning, and it's a growth experience.
And it also, like you said, you need to practice this. You need to There's certain things that need to happen before putting on a
Mhm.
condom, because that shouldn't be the first time. So at the school, when at the HRC, every time a student comes and asks for condoms, I'm like, what's the first thing that you need to do before putting on a condom? Mm, Open it? No, before that. Checking the date? Before that. I don't know, mister. Getting and providing consent. You need to
Yes.
talk about it. You need to talk about what's going to happen. Uh,
Huge part, right?
yeah. And they were like, oh, but that's like awkward. And I'm like, you're about to be butt naked with another person. If you're going to be that vulnerable, you can also spend 5 minutes at least talking about not what are your expectations, but are you comfortable? Do you really want to do this? Are you enjoying this? And it's not only before, but also look at the signs during the process, and after you finish, go back and check. And but before you put on a condom, there's several processes that are not like in the little booklet on how to put a condom.
That's true. Very true.
So yeah. So okay. So this was who was this? Was it
You asked me this one,
okay?
so
I lost,
it's my
I
turn,
lost my
right?
train of thought. Okay. So next one.
It's my turn. Was the message that you received from parents and family more like this? What are some of your boundaries related to sex and relationships? Or was it more like that, which is if you get someone pregnant, it will ruin your life?
Yeah, that. Yeah. And not only me, I know that to all of my friends, regardless of their gender, that was um the statement. Uh and I can I can attest to that all my friends got the same message from their families. Um and I don't remember what happened with those who actually got pregnant. I
Mm.
But yeah.
I
Um
imagine that it changed their lives, but I don't know that I would go so far as to say it ruined their lives. I
I
mean, I know many people who became pregnant as teens and really have quite wonderful lives at this point.
Yeah.
Might have made things more challenging for a period of time, especially with the stigma that's often attached.
Mm-hmm.
But ruin is a pretty
Yeah.
final
I
statement at a very young age.
Yeah, I can safely say that from you know the friends that I had, or the fellow students that I went to school with me, that became pregnant. They finished their high school. They went to do their things. Yeah, it might have been a little bit more complex than the rest, because they had to think about their children. But I have a friend who had their first and only until now uh, child in seventh grade. So it was
That's
quite
young. Yeah, that's pretty
a
young.
change in their lives. And in conversations, she at some point told me, and in these conversations we were having in high school, and she said, if I would have known, I would have waited, but I didn't know. No one told
Mhm.
me.
And
I
that's the thing, isn't it?
mm-hmm.
If we're
And
not having the conversations, how can we be prepared when
exactly. In this particular person, she finished her high school. She went to college, you know, and ironically, she took upon other kids from other family members, because their
wow,
parents, who waited way more, maybe couldn't handle the situation. And she's like, i
wow,
I had my kid in seventh grade, and I'm doing stuff. How is your life so complicated? And every person, every experience is different.
different.
um but she took upon her, to raise, I think, two more, two
Wow,
two more. So technically she has like three.
wow,
um and and of course, she had to go to work. She had to find a good job that will pay enough for her to support her family. And there has been times that, if I would have finished college, because she couldn't, things got really bad in Puerto Rico. um
yeah,
and she had to move. But was difficult. Yes, it was difficult. Did it ruin her life? Absolutely not. She knew,
yeah,
she had to learn quickly, and she did. And she took responsibility for her kid. Is like, this is my kid. I may depend on my mom or other family members to take care of my kid when I'm in school. But that's a conversation that we had beforehand. It was weird. It was like she became an adult in a really
she
young
be-
age.
at a really young age.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the reality.
that's what it sounds like. And I mean, that happens for a lot of parents who are become parents when they're still in their teens or or maybe not even quite there into their teens yet. And you know, Jonathan,
Mhm.
with this one, I'm going to shift the subject just a little bit because this one also reminds me back to some of what you were saying about the previous one in terms of if you're not really having these conversations, then you're also maybe making some assumptions about people's gender identities, about people's sexual orientations, and things of that nature. And so this, if you get someone pregnant, it will ruin your life. Besides that part about ruin your life, it also makes some presumptions
Mhm.
and sends some messages around identity
Yeah.
that might add another layer to shutting down the conversations and shutting down a young person's um, comfort being able to express who it
Yeah.
is they are and having some sense of confidence that who they are will be accepted.
Yep. Yeah, because then they are assuming that, that person is heterosexual or straight.
Exactly.
Um, so again, it's almost putting another barrier on, oh, wait, so maybe the sexual behavior that that I like or that I enjoy more will not create a pregnancy, but this is making me not want to talk about it.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, next one. This or that, Nadine. Was the message from your school or church more like this? Masturbation can be a positive way to get to know your own body, what feels good to it, and what does not, before you invite anyone else to invite anyone else to, or that masturbation will make you go blind and there's gonna be like hair coming out of your hands.
You know what, Jonathan? As we're going through this, this is making me realize, and I know we talk to people a lot about this, especially when we're talking to parents and other trusted adults. But this is helping me to realize, even in my own life, that a lot of the sex ed I got came from peers
Mm,
rather than from people who should have had valid, or one would hope would have had valid information to share.
mm,
Because I don't remember specifically that anybody talked about masturbation in school or at church.
mhm,
But I do know that peers had, kind of trashy little stuff to say about masturbation.
yeah.
Um, Whether or not they said go blind, I'm not sure, but they definitely made it sort of a thing that somebody should be ashamed of rather than something positive and a way to get to know your own body as well as to be able to find pleasure and things of that nature. Um, but yeah, it's really, this is really sending home to me that a lot of my sex ed came from peers, not from.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh, and now that you mentioned that, I will agree that a lot of the sex ed came from my peers, but I don't think we never spoke about masturbation, if peers or teachers or staff or anything like that, until college maybe.
mm,
Um, But something that I will say is that no one, like, it wasn't a thing, at least in my experience, at least in my groups, um, that, things about masturbation, like myths and stuff like that, it was shared. Like, no one, at least not on the boys. Uh, no one really believed that something bad it was gonna happen, but that I was in contact with. But I do remember. uh, my friends who were girls, etc. I think at some point we touch upon those topics. Okay, so this about having sexuality talks. This happened a lot. This been happening a lot for a long time in my life. So even in high school, my friends, we were having these deep conversations about sexuality. We didn't know poop, but we were talking about it at least. And I think we, at some point, we ask, to our girlfriends, if they also masturbated or something like that, and they say nope, that's not something we do. We don't talk about it. We don't touch there. We don't. No, 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 no. And it was like, why? And I think it was because that's we are virgins. We want to we have plans or stuff like that. But it was almost like we are not supposed to. So it's not that we can't. It's just that only certain people, and of course they were talking about these people negatively.
Right,
They do that. uh
right.
so I was like, I don't, I mean, so I think
And
that. Mm.
yeah. I mean, that's what I would say too. I don't know. I mean, I did hear like masturbation will make you go blind, but I think I was a little bit older when I heard that as like a myth. I don't necessarily think that my peers talked about myths, but I can tell you, like, as early as junior high school, and people didn't use the word maybe masturbation, they
Oh yeah.
used slang terms to talk about masturbation. And it was typically, the commentary around it was typically like a shaming kind of thing.
Mm. Yeah.
And it would have been shaming for girls if they did or even thought about it, but also kind of shaming when it was, talking about people with penises, because the implication was that people did that not because in a positive way, like they were getting familiar with their own body and learning what feels good and what doesn't, but rather that they were masturbating because nobody would want to have sex with them kind of thing. So it
Really?
was like shaming and stigmatizing kind of thing. Yes.
Wow.
Yes, yes.
So essentially, if a person was able to engage in sexual behaviors, they would have masturbate. That was like the logic.
Correct. Correct.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Well,
Generations of misinformed,
yes.
um, people.
So interesting. So interesting.
And
Okay.
when you don't have the information and people aren't teaching you and giving you valid information, you make stuff up.
Exactly. If you don't know something, make it up. No. But I guess even looking for information, felt bad, because I remember finding some books about anatomy, and of course they will talk about the genitals, and I didn't know that was there. I remember one day we were so bored in the library because the library ironically didn't have that many books. It was like a bunch of magazines, and with the small amount of books, there was one that was talking about the body, and a couple of us we just started, and we were just like going through it, and suddenly genitals appeared, and it was like, oh my god, it was like they're genitals. um but even that I'm saying like, oh, I said this, but really I was nervous too because I'm we're not supposed to be seeing that.
Yeah, how about that?
So but now that I go back, it's like, wow, the fear and shame and even stigma, because like, oh my god, what that makes us,
Yeah.
that we just stumble across that we were looking actively for it.
And we're not
So
supposed to see what a human body looks like.
exactly, well, at least not that part. That Only conditions.
Wow. Wow.
And to finish, you want to take the next one,
Oh,
Nadine?
sure. I'd be happy to
Bam.
do that. So, was the message that you got from your school or your church more like this? It's perfectly normal to be curious about sex. Let's come up with a list of trusted people and resources you can go to when you have questions. Or was it, let's look at these gross and exaggerated STD slides to see what happens when you are curious about sex?
Okay, it was definitely that. Um, and I also will mention that even the resources that they will bring to talk about these types of things, they will also, show gross, exaggerated STD slides, etc. Um, I think the all no, and it was a little bit shamey too. I remember in high school we had a person came, come to the theater actually, and mind you, the theater was just a regular classroom that had like a little theater, just like um in I remember her being funny and relatable, but I have to say, well, no, wait, hold up. And I think she mentioned that she had um herpes around their eye
Hmm.
because of an exchange, or she touched a person and then she scratched her eye or something like that.
Oh, wow.
I don't know how accurate that information was,
Yeah. Yeah.
but she said like it's completely normal. I just need to be careful not to touch my eyes. Just to take. I don't know if there were treatments back then. Uh, Probably there was, but
Because when you were in high school, that was like back in the dark ages, right?
oh yeah, absolutely. Like we were going in like in in carts. But from that aspect, she was like, I have it and I'm not dying. And she was funny, she was relatable again, and she was talking the same language that we will use.
Hmm.
um so it was nice not seeing the same girls pictures and whatever. But then the health class, it was just a parade of that, and it was like,
Yeah.
yeah, beware the STDs.
Yeah. A lot of the messaging, and still today, unfortunately, although we are working to change that, and people like Melissa are working to change that, um, and talk rather than about prevention from a fear based and shame based kind of perspective,
Yeah,
talk about healthy sexuality and what we need to do to promote that
yeah,
among young people, among grown ups, how we promote healthy relationships and healthy sexuality
yeah,
rather than focusing on the negative kind of stuff that the intention being to try to, I think, scare people away from ever wanting to have sex. But then it has this kind of cascading effect
yeah.
that impacts our relationships and our ability to be in relationships. It's just crazy.
And based on a conversation that I had this past Saturday with a person, um, there's a lot of pressure and guilt placed upon um females, women, people that identify as women, um about this, about their own bodies, about the actions of other people's in their body. So I think that's also something to be aware of, um, because there's a lot of guilt and shame placed upon a lot of people. And when talking about STD, we're not. I feel there's a thin line that can be very misunderstood, because when we say yes, the STDs are there, but you can always either cure them or treat them. That's not saying don't worry about it because we can always do something. It's not that, but we're also saying if a person, because infected with any STI, there's something that can be done. So it's not a dead sentence, and of course, that doesn't mean that your um, sexual life is just has just ended.
Right.
Because it doesn't have to be like that. Uh, but that doesn't mean that you everyone has permission to do everything that they want to do, because the reality is that you know you don't necessarily need to, if you don't have any need to get medications in your body that that otherwise you would need, etc., then that's a plus. But
Mm-hmm.
if you get an STI, you can either cure them or treat them, but that means that you will have to go through the whole process of, and it's preventable. That's the only thing that we're saying. But we're not encouraging anyone, "Oh, don't worry about it." But if it happens, there's always something that can be done. So,
Right.
you know,
What we're encouraging is healthy sexuality, healthy
exactly.
human beings, healthy relationships,
A healthy conversations, because
and healthy
again, if
conversations.
you can be butt naked in front of a person, you can also talk about what's gonna happen there before and after.
Yes. And if you can't talk about it, you should think about whether or not you're really ready to be engaging in those behaviors. Yes.
Exactly. So, folks, this is everything. Well, we had a little bit more, but we
We'd
can.
have more. Maybe another time. We'll see.
Please remember to check out Let's Talks to Have with Kids from Sex Positive Families. We're going to put the link for the book in the post so you can check it out. And we will see each other next week.
Next week with some special guests, I hope.
Oh my God.
We're going
Do
to
I
keep
know
it a
who that
secret.
person is? Do I know who that person is?
I think there might be two.
Oh my God. Okay, you will have to wait. So
Yes.
see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.